Hi, how's everyone doing? Great, cool. My name is Dana Beeler. This is the Small Festival Big World panel. We're all festival organizers here. I'm going to learn how to speak. Really quickly, I guess we can run down the line and say what we do and our names, even though it says our names here. Yeah, so my name is Dana Beeler. I am the executive director of In the Dead of Winter Festival, which is a small festival that happens in Halifax. And I also work for Music Nova Scotia. I work contract jobs with the Jazz Festival and ECMAs and pretty much anyone who will hire me. Yeah, like this lady.
I'm Andrea Dawson Thomas, and I'm the executive director for the Halifax Jazz Festival. I also work with a number of organizations as well. I work with ECMA, doing operations for them as well. The Halifax Jazz Festival, which is why I'm sitting up here, is a 5-day, 6-night festival in Halifax. We're on the waterfront. That's our main stage. It's on the waterfront. And we also do year-round programming as well.
Hello, I'm Cassie, and I'm from London in England. And I'm in bands. I'm in a feminist punk band. I'm in a pop band, and I'm in a socialist R&B band. And I run a thing called Loud Women, which is an organisation based in London which puts on events for women, women-led bands, and women and non-binary musicians. And we have a festival, and we do a lot of PR around the artists that we work with to amplify their voices.
My name's Shae Malcolmson. I'm from Winnipeg, and I run the Northern Touch Music Festival and Conference, a 3-day professional development music festival, basically leaning towards hip-hop, R&B, and soul, but we're open to all genres. I've been an artist for 10 years myself. The festival was kind of built with the artists in mind, taking some of the things that I valued from some of the festivals I had been to, and just trying to shift it a little bit more for the groups that are typically more marginalized, like hip-hop, R&B, and soul, providing a space for them. And also found that I was also then, by extension, helping communities of people who are marginalized who create that type of music. So I have an interest in that as well.
Hello, I'm Andy Jones, and I'm the co-founder, music booker for a showcase festival in the UK called Focus Wales. We're 9 years in now. We have 20 stages across the town of Wrexham in North Wales, 250 bands over the 3 days, with a conference during the daytime. So I'm not bored putting that together. And yeah, we're 9 years in now, and we've developed as an international platform, so we have a lot of partnerships with Australian Music Week, Zandari Festa in Korea. We work with the French with Libero Export, Canada with Nova Scotia Music Week, Pop Montreal, and Breakout West. So it's like 100 Canadians come over for it. And through this work, I guess, in addition to the Showcase Festival, I'm also now acting as the export office for new music from Wales, and we're hosting showcases at things like Pop Montreal, South by Southwest, and others around the world. So that's what I do.
Wow. All right, so my name is Henca Maduro. I'm from the Netherlands. Run a music conference, founded a music conference called NewSkoolRules, a music conference and a festival. Very artist-centric as well. We've partnered up for NewSkoolRules with Nova Scotia Music Week, with Breakout West, as well as CIMA from Canada, but also with PRS from the UK and all these other organizations. I think the urban music or black music, because we do hip-hop, R&B, dancehall, reggae, grime, dubstep, anything that's pretty much considered black music. I think it needed, when we started, because we started in 2009, it needed a platform, a place where anybody in the world that was dealing with those genres can come together and decide what we're going to do next. And it grew into a big old family, funnily enough. That's my main job that pays the bills. And my side hustle right now is managing artists, producers, and songwriters.
Cool. So if you guys have any questions, just raise your hand and we will get to you. I don't see the need to like wait until the very end, so we will answer them to the best of our ability. I think we're all extremely community-minded festivals. So I guess I'm going to start with Andy because I know that Focus Wales is kind of in an interesting town.
Yeah.
So how did you guys build in Wrexham? Because Wrexham is like a small kind of place.
Yeah, I mean, our thing really, so Wrexham is the biggest town in North Wales. Wales is, to give some perspective, a nation of, I think it's about 3.3 million right now in Wales, and the biggest town in North Wales has about 150,000 people that live there. So a lot of the energy and creative investment tends to go to South Wales. So when we started doing, the audacity to start a national showcase festival and not have it in Cardiff in the south and put it up North Wales, there were a lot of people who say, why not put it in Cardiff? But from our experience, actually, these types of events work better in the smaller places where the community buy in, and it's of real value to the place because they don't really host an international anything in our area. So everybody takes almost a sense of ownership of it, really gets involved. It helps with like the volunteer drive, and just generally it's become like a beloved part of the calendar. But significantly, I think when you're doing a showcase festival, you want it to be really practical for the musicians and the people who are showcasing or involved, whether you're a delegate, hustling, managing a band, trying to promote that. You want it to be really easy for the delegates to get around. So for us, placing our event in a small town where we've got 20 stages and the furthest point to the furthest point is a 5-minute walk, that makes it really easy because as a delegate, you can squeeze in a lot of bands because the venues are literally next door. So that's kind of one of the main perks for us.
Yeah, it's the same thing for us because we're in Rotterdam, and obviously a lot of people know Amsterdam. They don't even know that's the Netherlands, but they know the city of Amsterdam. So I figured if we go and try to do this in Amsterdam, then we won't see any of our panel members after they've done their panels, if they even make it to their panels. So we felt like it's a better strategic move to do it in the city of Rotterdam because there's not an overwhelming amount of tourists there. So when people come, they are getting treated very nicely. The Rotterdam people welcome them. They like tourists. Actually, in Amsterdam, they started hating tourists. So it's very important for us to do it there. I feel like if I would move it, it would take away from the whole vibe, the whole concept, and the whole effectivity of the conference itself and the networking part of the conference. So yeah, it's definitely a better decision for us as well. We're non-for-profit, government funded, partly. For a big part, and so we felt like let's go somewhere where the people living there appreciate it, the artists get a better opportunity, and the people that are coming there to network get a better opportunity.
How do you find because Halifax Jazz Festival has been around for 35?
It'll be 33 this
33
2019.
years. Okay. How do you find that it's like the jazz community is an interesting community and has grown? Jazz festivals in general have kind of evolved out of just playing jazz music, which has been good and bad for the jazz lover. I mean, good for the festival and bad for the jazz lover who just wants to listen to jazz music. How do you guys mitigate that in the jazz community? And you're like, we're going to bring in this Anderson .Paak headliner, but...
Which hip hop is jazz inspired.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
There's your answer.
Okay.
Well, the majority of our programming is still jazz. It's jazz focused. It's jazz inspired, jazz influenced. So it's probably, I don't know the percentage. It's probably like 65-70% that is jazz, and then there is music that's programmed as well that we really consider to be jazz influenced. There's a couple shows that we might do that might need a little more explanation around that, but for the majority of it, we feel really confident that we're still programming what is our core music base, I guess, and staying true to that. The opportunity with the way that we're programming now is we are diversifying our audience, we're diversifying our community, and we're exposing a larger group to jazz and to jazz-inspired music from both sides, to the traditional jazz lovers who, are very straight ahead jazz, to people who are interested in, the sort of jazz-inspired things as well. But they're crossing over and sharing in each other's interests, and I think it's working well. And certainly for a long-term sustainability perspective, it's really important and necessary to diversify your audiences, and diversifying that through programming is how you do it. And also making things accessible, and that's one of the things that's really important to us. So we had 88 performances this year, and 70% of those were free. So free to the general public. We also look at our pricing for the ticketed events, and we try to keep them within a reasonable range so that those shows are also more accessible for people.
I guess that kind of leads into my next line of questioning, which is diversifying our lineups. How does this can be for anybody who maybe hasn't had this or has had this issue. How do you have a mandate in your office or in the group of people that you work with or just yourself for having a diverse lineup, whether it be like gender or racial diversity on stages? Does anyone?
I would say that in the hip hop world, I'll often refer to it as a hip hop festival because I was a hip hop artist. But it is broader. But with the hip hop festival, I feel like we're actually it's two levels, because you're actually marginalized as hip hop, but then there's also the subdivision of all the marginalization that happens within there, and so we discovered that that's a huge part of our festival. So the first couple years has been like educating outside associations on hip hop, like re-educating, getting them comfortable with working with like a hip hop nonprofit, getting those strategic positions in the right place so that we have the opportunity to start reaching out to the smaller individual communities. And what we're finding is that we're kind of in that place where we can help those people because we're smaller. So some of the strategic partners that we have, we're actually just a good gateway to those people, and to be able to have those communications and ambassadors and bring them into the programming and all that sort of thing. So the crazy part is that like we've actually sat and had that conversation on how far do we go in checking ourselves. Like the brand new EDM that's like, super marginalized, but there's like a big giant scene of it like way down in like, wherever it happens to be in the middle of nowhere. How, we have to figure out where we draw our line on being diverse, because we're the weird ones. Like if your music's weird, come and talk to me, because like I'm definitely that guy to like take a listen and like whatever. But that's how we approach it anyways.
And it's the same with us. It's the same thing. Like I just program music I think is good. I mean, you are not in our necessarily typical, but I loved Dana's performance last year. So I was like, if you want to play NewSkoolRules, you're so welcome to play NewSkoolRules. So I guess it starts with great music. We've had folk music. We have had heavy metal where I combined them with like a hip hop band, and they just did their thing, and it was crazy, but it was amazing because it was so different. I've had a classical violinist open up with like a D'Angelo song, so we try to mix it up. I feel like we always are in touch with what people want to hear and what people want to see, and I try to combine that with things that they have never thought of. So I try to challenge the audience, because I feel like as a non-for-profit you can take those risks, and so you have to take those risks. So I feel like if I can, put a program down where it's the usual suspects, it's the usual genres, it's the commercial meets the super marginalized artist or whatever, but you can mix it up. So, and then our thing is also our performances are really short. So it's either 6 minutes, 9 minutes, or 12 minutes. And people are super upset always. The artists are always super upset with us that we do so, because they're like, I travel all the way from freaking Australia and I get 6 minutes. But what they don't understand is our audience their attention span is like this big. So as good as you are, if you're playing for 45 minutes, there's nobody left. And it's not good for your self-confidence. I just know my audience. So I know that the labels that are there, the publishers that are there, the managers, anybody, the press, they all have a super short attention span. It's just how the urban music industry works. So I'd rather have you do 2 songs that are super good and the A&R comes to you and talks to you afterwards than doing 45 minutes that I know the A&R is done left when to go do what he needs to do and never comes back. So I think you're trying to cater to your audience, whether it be industry execs, whether it is people, just regular consumers. But if you know them, you cater towards them. But I do try to mix it up where things unexpectedly, like I saw this act in Sweden at Life at Heart, and they were called the WEC MCs. And they're like clowns, but it's hip hop, right? And they're actually really good rappers, but they switch it up in a way where it's like they take themselves so not serious that it's like a comical act. And I was discussing with my partner, who's also my husband. He was like, "We can't book that," and I was like, "Hell yeah, we're gonna book that because that shit is hilarious." So it has to be a new school. He's like, "Yeah, but they're like playing around with the serious." Shit of hip hop, and I'm like, I don't care because guess what? It's super entertaining, and we need to show a variety of things. So sometimes you just have to do it just because you feel like it can work and it should be seen.
Yeah. I guess from our side, there are 2 things. I think we've realised the more international we've made our program, the more feedback from our audience is that they really love that. So they really enjoy discovering bands from Taiwan or Madagascar or Brazil. Having them running around our little town where it's so unexpected. So that has become a big strength of our cell. We know they love it, so we've increased it year on year. And we've done this strategically, working with partners, like I've outlined, the ones we work with in Canada and elsewhere around the world. So that helps to ensure that we have a diverse lineup in that respect, and we're bringing together musicians from all parts of the world. We're also So that's just something we like to do, and it makes for a fun program, we'd like to say. But we're also festival partners of the Key Change Initiative, which was started by the PRS Foundation in the UK, and it's a global network of festivals who have signed up to an agreement that we're going to tackle gender inequality in music, not just on stage but off stage too. So consideration to the panelists, industry guests we invite. Because it's still very blokey, the industry, and we realise this, and especially trying to support an industry in Wales, which has been quite, ahead of the game really in supporting women who want to work in music. So we're very lucky. We've got lots of awesome artists, female artists coming through in Wales. So it was a no-brainer for us to join that. Essentially, the target is for these festivals to strike a gender balance by 2020. Like a 50-50 balance across the program, across their speakers, and we're on track at the minute to nail that in 2019.
Yeah, Music Nova Scotia joined earlier this year as one of the first Canadian people to join it. I think it's 2022, but we've been doing 50. We did 50 last year. We've done 50 this year. Both panelists. The panelists, we were 80 last year, but we had a focus. So, I can talk about that all day. It's kind of a thing. When I was in Wales, it was you guys did a really great job of programming, and I think all of the bands that I saw were mostly female-led or had a woman in it, which was kind of cool.
I wonder if it means that I'm going to have to start booking men.
Yeah.
my festival is kind of very undiverse in that you have to be female or non-binary or the band has to be led by a woman and a non-binary person to get booked. But obviously within that, then I want to make the festival diverse racially and in terms of abilities and background and there's so much. There's so much, and we have a really large panel to select. Our booking process is by applications, so we have a really large panel to select who gets to play. So kind of the best that I can do as a kind of white cishet woman is to make that panel as diverse as possible and give everyone a kind of an equal vote in selecting. But even so, I mean, we end up with a festival that looks a certain way, and this year we had complaints that there weren't enough members of the trans community represented on our stage, and it's difficult. That every year we're kind of learning that there's more ways to include more people that need to be included.
I think that's that I've been dealing with that as well, and right from the beginning, like being like a part Indigenous but present as a white cis male. So I mean, doing a cultural event, you have to be fully aware of it. And when it comes to some of the stuff in regards to female empowerment, there's partially what I can do is create like you were saying, the spaces so that people can network and have those conversations, or aligning myself with somebody who knows that. And obviously can program something that specifically speaks to that sort of, audience or whatever. But yeah, it can be crazy, especially in something where you're already, like hip hop is kind of like marginalized. So you're already like doing a marginalized festival, and then there's sub-marginalization within there. So it's interesting.
Sure. I don't think hip hop is necessarily marginalized anymore. As a matter of fact, I think all the festivals are pretty much having to incorporate hip hop, because if not, then you're not including the youth. So I think it started off as being super marginalized, because when we started, there wasn't anything in the rest of the world outside of the US that was a platform for urban music in general. That's why I started what I started, because I felt like I will go to BDM, or I will go to Popcom, I will go to all these major music conferences, and it looked like urban music or hip hop culture didn't even exist. It was crazy because the pop charts were saying hip hop existed, but then these conferences were saying it didn't exist. So I don't know if it's still I don't feel like we're marginalized anymore. I do feel like as a hip hop community that we need to unite more, so we don't all fight separate fights. So I feel like the knowledge, like even us talking yesterday morning or the day before in the morning, I hear you coming across the same things that we're coming across, or we have been coming across, and that's the same thing for all these different organizations, all these different countries. So I do feel like if we were to exchange more knowledge together, then it will be easier for the hip hop communities to actually do their own thing. I think that is a problem. That all over the world, it's like, because the mentality is so do it yourself. So to reach out to somebody else and go, yo, I'm running into this. Let's talk about this. Did you ever run into this or run into that? Or what did you do with this? Like that learning curve. I think sometimes we are scared to open up about that. We have to learn about other stuff. And is withholding us from growing. So I think there's something that we need to do within our own communities for that hip hop.
Does anyone have questions?
I am an artist with a parent, and she is as well. And I saw her with her newborn running her festival, like literally with headphones on. So she's
like I run the festival with my family pretty much. So I run it with my husband. In 2017, I was like 7.5 months pregnant running it, and it was crazy because my stomach was just in the way of stuff. It was just funny. And then the year after, so this past edition in 2018, the baby was almost a year. But yeah, she had to be there, of course. So now I didn't have the stomach, but I had the carrier with the actual baby in it. So everybody was like, yo, you are insane. I'm like, yeah, but this is my life. So it's like, why? And then I have an 8-year-old, so I opened up the conference with the alderman of the city and stuff. She jumps on stage with me, like it's her thing, and it actually is her thing, right? And so yeah, so we definitely tried to accommodate. We had a stage outside where we did. It was called Dutch Hope, and it was like for kids from like 6 until like 16, and they, even though they weren't perfect yet and they might have been too young to actually, you know, have an audience like that or whatever, we were like, no, it starts with them. So it was like a whole bunch of families and dance groups and all these little kids, and my daughter was hosting it because it's my daughter, and she asked me, and I was like, yo, it's my festival. So yeah, I was gonna say no. So and she was 8, so she was hosting it. The DJ was like 9 years old, and so they were doing that together, and they were announcing everybody, and so it drew a whole bunch of families and stuff. So yeah, and he has a daughter too. So it's like we were talking about it the other day with this lady from Breakout West who also has a son. That we are parents, so we're trying to include and make it easier for people to come out and be, obviously not 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, that's parent time. That's grown people time. But the rest of the time, yeah, we try to make it as accessible as possible.
Yeah, I think, you know, there have been a lot of developments in music in the last 15 years in particular that empower artists and, you know, mean that artists can take better control of their career path if they're willing to put the time in to learn about it. And, you know, I do appreciate it's very much a different challenge for a female artist if you suddenly become, well, suddenly, overnight, but you know, suddenly you are a parent, and how that affects your mission. I mean, for us, it always comes back to the core thing with, like, we're a showcase festival, and we're there to represent and reflect whatever's going on at that point in time. So we're like open genre. And the main thing is that the artists showcasing have a strong business case for needing to be there at that particular time. So you may have just had a child, but your business plan might be a thorough, detailed 2.5-year plan. And, you know, you might be looking to set up a tour a year from now. As long as you're very clear about your plan, it needn't get in the way. But that's just completely coming from my perspective, doing a showcase festival and how we can be open to musicians with kids, because it obviously it is a challenge. And, you know, sometimes there's been a few occasions where I thought, where maybe the business case hasn't been that clear, and they've been saying, yeah, I'd love to tour America, and I'm going to South by Southwest, and I've just become a parent. And it's like, well, just be clear about like what what the ask is, and if you're meeting with loads of agents, you know, you need to have a clear plan in your own mind as to what you would accept and wouldn't. You know, are you honestly going to be ready to go on tour when your child's only 6 months old? Maybe it's something for 2 years down the line. Maybe.
I've seen it though. It does happen. So it all depends on how you organize it. We were at Breakout West a couple of weeks ago, and this girl came with her daughter. Her daughter was there for 3 days straight. I saw yesterday somebody came with their baby. The cutest baby. Was actually great for their networking because everybody's like, oh my gosh, she's so cute. So tell me your story. I want you to win because your baby's so cute. That type of thing. So it actually was a marketing tool. It seemed like it was a marketing tool for her. But that was the reality. She probably didn't have a babysitter, but she still wants to come because she wants to make it happen. And she brought the baby. You just make it happen. But I do think, because a lot of people asked me last year, like, okay, you're married, you got 2 kids, you running around all over the world. How are you doing this? And then I did say, if you start a family and you want to, you know, still maintain this career, and especially being an artist, your how you say it, your environment needs to be facilitating to that. Because if you don't have somebody that fall back on, whether it be your partner or your mom or your sister or whoever, then it's almost impossible. If I wouldn't have the people around me that I have around me, I wouldn't be able to do it. I can't do it by myself because I can't take my kids everywhere. So I think if that's what the situation is, make sure that whatever is surrounding you and whoever is helping you, that they also are able to help you when you want to start traveling or when you want to start building this career, because otherwise it's impossible. Or it seems impossible to me. I'm just happy that I have it.
I just want to quickly mention as well, and not just from the artist's perspective of having kids, but we've talked about programming like music camps at the same time as the conference, just so that people who are attending the conference who do have kids can sign up and register their kids for kind of music camp. I'm friends with a guy who actually was nominated for awards for his album, I Wish My Teacher Was Bubba B, which is basically a kid's album, rap album. So he has some initiatives that he's done. Dio's got some stuff that I've thought about doing with, and basically just setting it up in that way where that family can come down, you know, parents can go to the conference, the kid can go to the workshop, and then they can enjoy the programming during the day, which we have an outdoor stage in a park downtown. So basically, they can enjoy that. Go into all the vendors and stuff like that, and then later on, maybe drop the kids off. Saves them a little bit of money. I know how expensive babysitters can be. Shout out to her mom who watches our kids, so it's free. But yeah, so we're trying to find ways to make it work, not just for the artists. So.
Yeah. I guess it comes down to accessibility, I guess, as well across your venues. And as an event organizer, you should be mindful of, well, making sure that your event is really inclusive in that respect, across accessibility. And from our side, we have, interesting to hear, some 70% of the jazz festival shows are free. Is that what you were saying?
Yep.
Yeah, and we adopt a similar philosophy around basically wanting to be as inclusive as possible, in that we have like 40, I think it was like 41 shows over the 3 days that make up our festival, and 18 of them were free to attend in ground level venues that were easily accessed, because the whole point is, to be inclusive for absolutely everybody. My background is, I don't come from money, and I was absolutely skint as a teenager and a young man trying to make music, and I don't want those people to be cut out by a festival that ultimately ends up being a high ticket thing. So it's important, I think, that we've got those inroads for absolutely everyone in society.
How do you navigate that with like the festival's bottom line?
It's tough, yeah. I guess we've got to be
super resourceful.
Yeah, it's like we start, like our first proposal for 2019 went into one of our funders the week before our 2018 edition. So it's become, it's become almost like a 13-month sort of planning cycle to deliver the event each year. And we're very careful about which stages we add, and we tier our shows. So like we do a lot of stuff that's early on, that's free. In many cases, it's like a good marketing tool. It's just to like plant a few seeds, just tease people, entice them just to go and check out a free show, pick up a bit of the vibe, and maybe think, you know what, I'm going to go to the show later on. Actually, everyone's going to see this show in the church, or this big metal show, or whatever it may be. The idea is that we can just just plant some seeds, as I say, and hopefully, whether it's that year that they come and they fully get involved and buy a wristband, or a year or two down the line. But yeah, it's tough, because, what are your overheads? the overheads are like pretty significant doing a 20-stage festival with 250 bands. Like the catering bill alone is insane.
We tie in pretty heavily to the beer garden, so that's like kind of our thing. We have a free stage, and it also attracts quite a few people. So the accessibility is there, and then it's free to get into the beer garden, obviously, but we've got strategic partnerships to be able to like maintain revenue from the beer garden over 3 days, and keep it free. The show, the after parties though, are ticketed unless there is passes, which has been also helpful. But it's you also have to manage how much you're giving away for free. So it's like who's going on the outdoor stage for everybody for free, and then who is better suited for indoors. But it also helps because some of the acts in hip hop are not suited for the outdoor stage during the afternoon. So it works for that late night sort of vibe.
And sometimes,
I was just going to say, it's the balancing of the commercial and the non-commercial, because ultimately there's a bit of shared synergy here about showcasing acts that aren't yet selling tickets, so that they can go and become professional and be touring acts that sell tickets. So how do you make money out of loads of acts who can't sell tickets? It's difficult. So like what we do is we bring in some guest touring headliners. So the showcase becomes you're playing with an award-winning artist in the church, and then that audience lends itself to the newbies on the undercard. So there's a lot of that goes on at our festival. We have a lot of headliners that basically balance the books, really.
Yeah, I think we do it a little differently than other festivals, because we don't necessarily pay the people to play. So we get funding to put it together, and we provide the platform. And then, so we do a free stage for people that have to get themselves there. But it to actually really grow, I feel like we're at a point as well where we have to bring in headliners that we're going to have to pay. So far, what we try to do sometimes is, because of the relationships we have with big Dutch artists, we will have them play. They will draw in the audience, pack the house, and then whatever free acts are playing, then at least have a crowd. But the Dutch artists became so big now that they are actually costing way more than some of the American acts that you will pull in. So they definitely, this new generation is definitely not trying to do this for free. So it's like this is going to be an interesting. I'm going to have to raise more funding to get these paid headliners, because they're like, yeah, no, I'm getting 20,000. Yeah, I love you, but I'll come visit you at your house.
And do you think that like your audience wouldn't pay more money?
Well, my most expensive ticket is €5.
Jesus. Okay.
So yeah, no, they
No.
can afford. They can definitely afford it. So either it's a free show, it's a €5 show, and then the only thing that costs more than that, which is like €8, is the actual after party. So the prices are super low, but it's because we're funded, and also because I feel like if we raise the prices too much for the festival part, I can't sell it to the people performing that they're not making any money.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but what is a lot more expensive for us at NewSkoolRules is the actual conference. So the conference part is like when we first put tickets on sale, it was like €85, and then by the time you do a walk on, it's like €200 now. So that is something that people like pay us in terms and stuff like that, and to keep it accessible, we allow them to do it in 2 terms or 3 terms, and we have all these payments coming in. It's really not that practical, but we're trying to make it accessible for everybody.
Yeah. Andrea?
We approach it. We're presenters. We're not promoters, first and foremost. But our headliners are important for the draw because we have this large capacity venue of 3,500 to 4,000 people, and we also rely on concessions as a key revenue generator, and that's one of the ways that we're able to afford to have free programming. The other thing is we do receive some government funding that does support a small amount of free programming, but we could definitely use more of that. And obviously, just pitching, it's Mickey here. And obviously sponsorship dollars, we consider portions of that we target specifically to support shows that we're putting on that we know are not necessarily going to see and break even bottom line or a surplus, so that helps as well. So we're very strategic in how we approach it, but again, the free programming is really, really important, and yeah, that concession piece is a big part of how we manage.
I just sell tickets. Yeah. And I kind of have an unofficial policy that no one will be turned away for lack of funds. And in practice, people come and volunteer or help out in some way, or even just coming along and doing a load of social media, or just contributing to the event in some way if they can't afford to pay. But it's a London festival, so a lot of people can afford to pay, so make sure that they do. This year we released a record as well. We worked with a label that put out e-vinyl with some of the artists who were performing, and we got all the money from that, which was
cool.
Which was great, and that kind of helped pay the artists, which is the point.
Sweet. Yeah. So we have a couple more minutes if anyone has a question. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we both do, don't we?
Yeah, we get government funding as well as a national funding. For NewSkoolRules, the local government funding is monetarily, but also the alderman of the city or the mayor of the city comes and opens NewSkoolRules, for instance. It draws in more press. It gives it, for some reason, even though for the young people, they really don't care, to be honest with you. But for funding organizations, other like incidental funding organizations, it is a big deal if the mayor shows up, because they feel like, okay, well, this must be a very legit festival, whatever, if the mayor shows up. So next year when you apply, they're like, oh wow, this is a great organization. So it helps for that. But then also, I think when the city of Rotterdam, so we have this board that goes to other countries and to other like conferences and festivals and all these other things where they represent the city of Rotterdam, and they always say we take a bag of information with us to tell people about, and when they take your event with them as well to show a diversification of what's going on in Rotterdam, it also helps. So they do. So they help us on several levels, and also I think they also try to help as a city towards the national government to make sure that the national government is aware of us as an organization. So when we apply for national funding, they also help us with that.
We get lots of in-kind support as well as financial support from local government. I mean, as we do national government, significantly. The county government, Wrexham County, supportive, through offering venues, marketing support, staff. I mean, ultimately for the town of Wrexham, it's the flag in the ground. It's the one international event that we host, and we're the leaders in showcasing new music and bringing the music industry to Wales once a year. So they acknowledge that it's the one time the hotels are full in the whole year. So the economic impact is huge, the cultural impact is huge. So they do get behind it. And I know from traveling around and speaking to people putting together similar events, actually, that we're quite lucky in that respect, that they are proactive and open and flexible. So
yeah, I forgot to mention the marketing part we also get because the city buys into the Metro newspaper, for instance, once a week for arts and culture. And so once you get that funding, they'll make sure that the editorial staff also recognizes the fact that they are supporting you. And normally you always get a piece of, an article in there. Sometimes you get lucky and they put a picture and an article in there, whatever. But it also definitely, yeah. And they'll make sure that they, point out to the press that it's coming and stuff like that. Yeah, we actually were on a billboard, like a big LED billboard, right across the street from the central station in Rotterdam, for like a week, and they played like a video and kept repeating the website and stuff. So I had to go out to we were so busy, but I went out to the office to stand there for like 20 minutes for it to come by and to film it and stuff. So I know I'm such a fan of my own thing. But anyway, so yeah, it helps. It definitely helps.
Yeah, we also had federal assistance and then provincial assistance. The mayor came down. We actually got the mayor to do some graffiti as well, which was really cool. And it was all over social media, which was amazing. He's been really supportive. And what we're finding is that the politicians in Winnipeg are actually pretty open to it because, it's bringing people from like the Torontos and the Vancouvers. So they're just like, oh, really? So when they saw it happening, when he came down, he was just like, okay, yeah, we'll have to talk over the coming years with tourism and all that sort of thing. So they've been actually really open to it, which kind of speaks to the smaller communities. Yeah. It's just easier that way. So.
London is different, I guess. How are you experiencing?
We're really fortunate. We have all three levels of government that support us, and we're partners with them. They participate in the event. They come to the shows. They do speeches. A number of the agencies associated with our municipal and provincial government also support us with in-kind support, which is very significant. So yeah, it's an ongoing working relationship. If there's specific initiatives we'd like to do, we work with our government partners and they help us to execute those. So give us, one-off allocations in order to be able to do things like that. So yeah, we're really fortunate.
Yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I don't get any. I don't get anything. Yeah, I need to have a chat with Sadiq.
What's going on?
Yeah, no, I've looked into. I've had some offers of like trade union funding, but with that then comes kind of being tied to a particular organisation or I'm a control freak. I want it to be right. So So yeah, no, we just kind of bumble along. With
But
my
so
money.
how do you finance it then?
We sell tickets, sell records, sell T-shirts, badges. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's our time. Thank you guys so much. There's more stuff happening downstairs. Great.